Let me know when you're ready. You ready?
Are you recording?
Yeah, I think it's recording.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to check again now that you got me second guessing. Yes, it's recording.
Well, good.
Yeah. Hey there, friends. In this week's video, we're going to talk a little bit about parenting. I mean, I know we're legendary couples, but we're legendary couples with kids.
Because we have those.
Yeah, we do have them. And when we have them, man, did it really crush our marriage. In a lot of ways, having
kids crushed our
marriage. It really did. I mean, it threw us off, right?
Big
This
time.
is because we didn't have a plan. I don't know if anyone ever has a real plan when they have kids.
We wouldn't even have known what to do.
Yeah.
That's the truth. We didn't know what to do.
So what we're going to share with you today then is, and I know every family is different. Every dynamic is different.
Yeah, it's true.
But we're going to share with you 5 questions to help you create a parenting plan. You know, and there's going to be other questions. Yeah, but these are good 5 key questions to get you on your way. So question number 1 is then, what values do you want to instill in your children? We talked about core values in a previous video. You and I have values that are, core values that are family established. You know, my values are your values, are our kids' values. So you have to get clear on what values you want to instill in your children, and having that, what does that do? We talked about making better decisions, right? So when we have these values and we learn what values we're going to instill in our children, it helps us make better decisions.
Compass.
Right. A moral compass, or a compass, a North Star on how we're going to parent them. It helps sort of create the framework around the plan of being better parents.
Right.
So question number 2, how are we going to help them develop those values, right?
Which I think that's the last step in core values. Like, what are the actions?
Right, exactly. So if we have these values for our kids, how do we encourage them and inspire them? These are great conversations to have,
Modeling.
Modeling, right? Mm-hmm. If, let's take, for example, if courage, which is one of our core values, is one that we've established as a family, we have to model courage for them as well. But we can also, inspire them and encourage them.
Encourage courage.
Encourage the courage, which is where the word comes from, right? How to step into that courage themselves. How can we enable and guide them in order to live out those values as well?
Right.
So, question number 3. This is a tough one. This is a good conversation. What is our discipline method? I mean, don't get me started on the Facebook posts I see about to spank or not spank. I don't want any judgment here, but you do need to talk about that, right?
You have to talk about it because, I think that this was one of the biggest things for us, was like, how do we handle this situation? And those moments that the kids saw us on different sides, that's an in.
Yeah, they tried to divide us.
They would try to divide us, especially our older one, who experienced more of a dysfunctional relationship between the two of us. Mm-hmm. And she was masterful at dividing us. She would even go as far as asking you for or me for something. I'd say no, and then she'd go to you.
Right.
Yeah.
And so having that discipline, and it's not just when they do something wrong. It's like, well, what are we going to say yes to? What are we going to say no to? And I remember when we finally got on the same page with this, she stormed off and turned around and she goes, you two are like a team. And just
we were like,
out. High five.
Yes, it's exactly what we were like. Oh my gosh, we did it. We did it. We got on the same page because for so many years of her life especially, we were not on the same page. We were not on the same team. We were actually on opposite sides of the...
Yeah, and we weren't talking about disciplining, and we would actually get mad at each other.
Big time.
Yeah.
That was one of our biggest fights, was disciplining Huli.
So you have to get on the same page with discipline. How are you going to handle discipline? Mm-hmm. Question number 4 is... who handles which logistics? Now, I know we talked about in a previous video about roles.
Yes.
So this kind of fits into roles a little bit.
It completely fits into roles.
So not kind of, completely. All right. So, who's going to handle some of the kid-related stuff? Or like who's making lunches? Maybe they're making them themselves. How are we helping them with homework? We used to homeschool, and so who was doing the math? Who was doing the grammar?
I don't do math.
And then soccer practice. Who's got the soccer practice this day? Who's got the soccer practice that day? So it's just...
And does that work? I mean, I think that's the piece. I felt a lot of resentment in our relationship for a while when we were both working. And then a lot of the things still fell on me, right? And I think a lot of people experience that. Like one party tends to like just take on the role of the kids. And I think that, I mean, I even felt that a little bit when we were stay at home, right? Because of the pattern that kids get in with like needing the mom and wanting the mom, like, oh, this is happening. I'm doing it again. And so it wasn't until you and I had this conversation that said, you handle the math, I handle the fun stuff. No. You do the smart stuff, I do the not so smart stuff. But truly, like we talked about the argument we had about me handling a lot of the emotional conversations with the girls.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
that's your lane.
That's my lane. And we talked about that's my lane. Like I handle the big emotions, and until I can't, right? There's okay to be like I need to tap out. But having that conversation, and you do the math with them or whatever else, right? You have other conversations with them.
Right. So question number 5 is, what type of education do we want to have for them? I think this is another big conversation, especially with newer-ish parents who have like 3 to 4-year-olds. They're like, okay, suddenly it's starting to have the education talk. What kind of school? I want a private school, or and so when we start to have these conversations, very meaningful and conversations about that, and not trying to get what you want. We've got to co-create what we want this to look like, right?
Right.
So that is another huge important question about planning your parenting around, well, how do we want to educate them? And ours evolves.
Ours is constantly evolving. Yeah, we're big pivoters in life in general, but kids' education is a big one. I think, yes, you have this conversation when they're young, and if you haven't had it when they're young, have it now, right? But I think a big piece to this and the discipline and a lot of these others is go back and watch the video on developing your core values. Because when we determined what we were going to do for an education, and when we made that big leap for our kids and for us, our values came into play there. Like, what are our values for our kids? What do we want to leave them with? And so when we got really clear on that, the education pivots and the education changes that we've had, the discipline changes that we've had, the roles of who takes what that we have, all fall on those values.
Absolutely. So those are the 5 questions. 5 questions for creating a plan around your parenting. 1, what values do we want to instill? 2, how are we going to get them to live within those values? 3, what is our discipline method going to be? 4, who handles the various logistics around the kids? And kids come with a lot of logistics. And 5, what type of education do we want them to have? And we believe that from these 5 parenting planning questions, a whole slew of other conversations will come about, be more connecting, move your family forward, and establish a great parenting relationship.
Right.
So, if you like this video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we'll see you on the next one.
I love that you grab the bell like balls.
Let
me hold the cow balls.
I don't know the bell. I don't even know if I'm doing it right where the bell is, but there's a bell over here. Subscribe and the bell.
With the ball.
With the balls. Hold the bell. Hold it. Oh, baby bell. I love you. Tell me when they're making another video.
They're never going to hit the notification bell.
Probably not.